Well, the Tigers are reportedly interested in some starting pitching, which is a nice reminder that the offseason is, in fact, not over yet. We'll talk about that and how Tarik Skubal's arbitration could affect their interest in said players. All today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Wednesday, January 14th, 2026. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The wild card round has come and gone, but the playoffs move on, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your Profit Boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Today we discuss, well, a handful of things. We're going to end the show by kind of taking a look at some news from around the league. Kyle Tucker updates don't affect the Tigers. Nolan Arenado traded to the Diamondbacks does maybe slightly affect the Tigers. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Going to talk some MLB Network stuff. We'll also talk about international free agency, which opens this week. Some news and notes in regards to players the Tigers have brought in, some players that have signed elsewhere. But we're going to spend the start of the show and a bulk of the show talking about some rumors surrounding, I guess, still like free agency, right? And like I said in the cold open, it's a nice reminder that free agency is in fact still going on. There actually is still a handful of really good players out there, right? A handful of starting pitchers, not to mention, as I already said, Kyle Tucker, maybe the best player in free agency this year. I mean, Bo Bichette is still a free agent, right? Like there are still a handful of big names that are available. Now the Tigers aren't in on any of those big names, you know, in case you maybe thought they were. Hate to break it to you, hate to burst your bubble, but they are in fact not. However, there are a couple of starting pitchers that there are some reports. Rosenthal, I know, kind of pointed it out, but a couple of our beat writers have written about it as well, that the Tigers have expressed interest in Lucas Giolito and or Chris Bassitt. Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with that. That's fine. I know it's like super anticlimactic and not like some, you know, clickbait, social media clip, hot take, but like, yeah, fine. That's cool. Like Giolito had a nice year. He had Tommy John in the end of the winter of 2023 going into 2024, and then missed all of 2024. And 2025, his first season back, he was in Boston, did that weird thing where he signed a 2-year deal with the Red Sox, knowing he would miss a year. And yeah, he was pretty good. Had an ERA around 3.5, I want to say, just under even 3.5. Now, there's a lot of stuff that would point to him regressing, depending on you if you subscribe to metrics and analytics or not. To each their own. But there's a lot of stuff in like he didn't strike out very many hitters. He gave up a lot of hard contact. He did not get a lot of ground balls. Like there's a lot of things that the advanced metrics don't like, and so I would imagine he's probably set for a little bit of regression. But in the same breath, this was his first year back from TJ. Maybe there's something to be said for the arm getting healthier and maybe the stuff going back to his pre-Tommy John form, which at one point was pretty good. Now, in the years leading up to his TJ, he had ERAs over 4. And in the 2 years leading up to his Tommy John, were comfortably over 4 in both of those years. So, yeah, like if they want to go out and get Lucas Giolito, am I going to be upset? No, I'm not going to be, popping champagne and clicking my heels together and jumping around. But sure, as much as some people might love to see that, Here's my thing with starting pitching. I want to talk about Bassett too. We'll do that in a second. My thing with starting pitching is I will never be upset at signing starting pitchers, really. I guess on a simple level, like on a very simplistic viewpoint. Now, that doesn't mean just sign a bunch of really bad pitchers and just if you have a lot, that's okay. But it's an innings mindset, right? The way that pitching is today, you are going to go through a lot. You are going to have a lot of injuries in your starting pitching, in your rotation. That is not a choice anymore. It is inevitable. Everybody deals with it. The Dodgers rotation was worth like $1 billion last year. Almost all of them got hurt. So I'm never going to be upset. And I see online all the time, people, there's like, oh, the Tigers are linked to so-and-so starting pitcher. And all the replies are, fans that are like, oh, well, he's going to take, Troy Melton's spot, or he's going to, take innings away or starts away from so-and-so. He's really not, whoever it is, he's really not, man. There are, again, you are not going to, this is no longer the 2014 Tigers that got through like the whole season with like 7 starters, right? Like, I mean, have you watched the Tigers alone in the last, 4 years have used around 15 starting pitchers every year? You need innings. And Troy Melton is going into his rookie year. Reese Olson has he even hit 150 innings in a major league season yet? Like, no one outside of Skubal really has a proven track record of being able to rack up innings. And even Skubal had crazy injury problems and was hurt all the time before this stretch that he's currently on of the last, 2.5 years. So it is okay to always be interested in good starting pitching. That is never a problem. I promise you, as long as Troy Melton is relatively healthy, he will start games for the Detroit Tigers in 2026. Even if they sign both of these guys, which they won't, but even if they were two, rather, English. Everybody's going to get a chance to get their innings. You need starting pitching because we have seen so often over the last 5 years this rotation be, down to bullpen games. And who was it? Wandy Peralta was like the one in the early Hinch days, right? Like there's a plethora of guys that kind of fit that mold. Tyler Alexander, etc. Now, let's talk about Bassett. If you're an everydayer, you will remember back in October, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, probably October. Right when the season ended, or right when the Tigers got eliminated, rather, we kind of did like free agency palooza and just talked about all the free agents that were going to be available and who the Tigers might have an eye on and who they won't, etc. And I said that Bassett was maybe the most guaranteed Detroit Tiger in the history of free agency. So while this is not a guarantee, and they will talk about after the break here, there's a very real chance that they back out of all interest depending on what happens with Skubal, which I think is ridiculous. Bassett, not a surprise here that the Tigers are interested in Bassett. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We'll also talk about the Skubal impact of all of that right after this. First, though, going to talk to y'all about our good friends over at FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts that you can apply to bets you like the most. So you open your profit boost pack, And on game day, you see what boosts you want to apply. The boosts give you more juice on bets you already like instead of forcing you to bet something new. You make your picks, then apply your profit boost to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL game day. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day, and we will, of course, be back on Friday. Friday, we will be recapping a little bit of the international free agency results, as well as continuing to talk offseason ball. We will talk Riley Greene, kind of deep dive at some point as well. So thanks for tuning in, making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. And you can now join the Everydayers Club. You just go to LockedOnPodcastNetwork.com/Everydayers Club. You can find Locked On Tigers and join and be a part of a members-only Discord server with me in it, other hosts in it, other listeners in it, talking ball all the time. You also can get ad-free episodes. Today, we discuss some rumors and some news and notes surrounding the Tigers organization. Bassett and Giolito, the two big talking points from the week. So Bassett, I joke about him being the most obvious Detroit Tiger signee of all time. I stand by that. It's not really a joke, to be honest. But I wouldn't dislike the signing either. I don't think that's you can do a lot worse. And Bassett's a guy, I mean, that's almost disrespectful to say you can do a lot worse. So he had a sub-4 ERA. He's in his mid-30s. It would only have to be a 1, maybe 2-year deal at most for, I think, people to get on board. But he's a solid rotation guy. I think the biggest thing with Bassett is that he's going to give you innings. And as I said earlier, that is very important to have kind of a stabilizer that you know is going to go out there every 5th day and not have a ton of injury problems or whatever. Bassett is 3 seasons removed from a 200-inning season, which, Skubal doesn't even do. And in the following years has eclipsed 170. Like, he is an innings eater. And again, had a sub-4 ERA last year, around 3.9, 3.95-ish. While throwing over 170 innings. So, a guy that's going to give you over 30 starts. I think, none of his stuff is incredibly overpowering, if you will, like a low 90s fastball at this point. But how do I even describe his pitch style? It would not be an exaggeration to say that he has like 8 or 9 different pitches. I think last year Baseball Savant recorded him down for 8 unique different pitches on a relatively consistent basis. Now, some of those were like 1 or 3% of the time, but like that's still a handful, right? Like, you're keeping hitters honest with those. So he's just a guy, like he's a pure pitcher. He's not overpowering you with his stuff. He's not a flamethrower. He is just trying to keep you off balance as much as he possibly can with as many different pitches as he possibly can. And I like that from a sustainability standpoint, like being able to replicate the production. But that being said, again, like if he had a 4 ERA next season, I would consider it a win. Like, he's not a top end rotation guy, but if you can get 30 starts of 4 ERA baseball from like your number 4 or 5 spot in the rotation, even that's a win. So that's why they're interested. Now, the frustrating part of these reports, now that we've got kind of the player breakdowns themselves out of the way, is Ken Rosenthal kind of talked about this a little bit on Foul Territory. Great program. Go check it out. Great people. Also, Tiger Territory, the Tigers branch of that with Steven Hagen and Kieran. They do an absolutely fantastic job. Great human beings as well. So always be sure to go support them. But Rosenthal made a couple interesting comments. One, he said that the Tigers may not pursue those players as aggressively if they lose their arbitration case with Skubal. And Evan Petzold of the Freep wrote a piece kind of about this as well. That is the cheapest thing I've ever heard. Actually, the second cheapest thing I've ever heard. We'll talk about the cheapest thing I've ever heard in about 5 minutes. But this isn't even like, oh, we can't go after Kyle Tucker now for $50 million a year or whatever the heck the Mets are going to offer because we lost the arb case of Skubal. We're talking about Chris Bassitt and Lucas Giolito, man. That is just a brutal thing to read on a Monday morning. Now, the cheapest thing I've ever heard is what his follow-up was, which was that, and this wasn't like confirmed, okay? This is not a fact. This is a Ken Rosenthal opinion, okay? I want to make that abundantly clear. This is not something that definitely did happen. But he just threw out there like maybe Skubal picked such a high price to force the Tigers' hand to trade him. Now, again, I don't know Tarik Skubal. I don't know Ken Rosenthal. I don't know Ken Rosenthal's sources. I have no clue. I cannot fathom this is true. One, because that just feels like a really weird way to go about doing that. Like you're going to use arbitration to force a trade. That is wild because if you go too high, then they can just pick the team and then congrats. So I don't really buy this. But the biggest thing that I am having trouble with is the Tigers' perspective of this. Please tell me the Detroit Tigers are not so cheap in their current state that the difference of $13 million in a Major League Baseball roster budget, okay, the difference of 13 mil is enough for a Major League Baseball team to no longer want to retain and keep the best pitcher in baseball. Please tell me that is not the case. We are talking about $13 million. Obviously, that's generational money. But in the context of a Major League Baseball roster and a Major League Baseball salary, 13 mil in today's day and age, that's less than a qualifying offer by like a lot. By what? Over 5 mil at this point. This is a Major League Baseball team. Players cost money. If $13 million is the difference between you wanting to keep the best pitcher in baseball or trade him away, then you probably shouldn't be owning a Major League Baseball team, to be quite frank. I'm not sure how much more blunt I can be. You probably shouldn't be owning or running a team if that is the amount of between the margins we're talking about with a player of this caliber. And this isn't even talking about the $300 million plus contract that he's going to get, in 10 months. We're not even talking about that. This is arbitration. And I can't fathom being so like counting pennies about this, where if the arbitration hearing goes one way, we're not signing any more free agents, and we might even trade Skubal away because it's a 1-year deal that we don't want to pay. Or they side with the Tigers, and then all of a sudden we're keeping Skubal and potentially signing another starting pitcher. That is absurd to me, and I almost want to just refuse to believe it's true. Okay, cool. Moving on. Let's talk Bryan Sammons, the newest member of the Tigers organization. We'll talk a little bit of Andy Ibáñez and then prep you for international free agency as well. We'll do that right for this. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all so much for tuning in as always. Got a few more things, a little bit on a lighter note, I would imagine, to go over here. Bryan Sammons back for the Tigers. So for those who are have been watching the Tigers for more than 2 seasons. Sammons pitched for the Tigers in 2024 and was actually pretty decent. Almost hit 30 innings. It wasn't a super small sample out of the bullpen, and had a sub-4 ERA. Was pretty solid, was a lefty, kind of a soft tosser, a little, I mean, in today's standards, soft tosser, like he throws 92, 93. But then left, pitched for, I believe, a team in Japan in 2025, and now is back on a minor league deal with, of course, an invite to spring training. As I said, a lefty, has, fastball, cutter, sweeper. At least that's what he had in 2024 with the Tigers when I saw him last. Did not watch too much Bryan Sammons baseball in Japan, so we'll see. Maybe the repertoire of this stuff is a little bit different in spring training, but that's what he was offering the last time he was a part of the organization. This in a vacuum, I have no issue with. Like, take your chances. If there's a guy you like or you've seen him pitch and you like him, then, so be it. The interesting aspect to me is the Tigers' strategy with the bottom of the bullpen, and even really just like trying to find a left-handed reliever in general, just seems to be signing a billion of them to minor league contracts with invites to spring training and then just hoping that one of them turns out. Now, like, that has like kind of worked before, as much as people rolled their eyes. Like, Tyler Holton, that, he kind of falls under that umbrella, was a waiver claim and then got MVP votes, 2-3 years later. Like, that can work. In the same breath, I would prefer, like, you can do that and also be more aggressive and sign a bigger name lefty or trade for a more legitimate proven lefty. You can do both of those things, believe it or not. It's not a one or the other avenue. We're talking about minor league contracts. You can still afford them, even if you go out and sign a bigger name lefty on top of that. So we'll see what happens, but I have no issue with Sammons. Again, in a vacuum, it's more of just like the big picture. I want them to be more aggressive in general, though. That kind of goes throughout, outside of just the bullpen. Something that happened a couple of weeks ago that I don't think we ever talked about was Andy Ibáñez signing with the Dodgers. He signs with the Los Angeles Dodgers to a major league deal, which was a little surprising to me. Non-tendered by the Tigers to major league contract for the Dodgers. Now, the Dodgers love their platooning, matchup ball as well. Abanez plays a lot of different positions, so he gives you some versatility there. He didn't hit lefties too well this past year, but that is, his MO. There's nothing that says they don't just cut him before opening day or whatever. I can't imagine it's a super expensive major league contract. So we'll see what happens with him, if he ends up, sticking at the major league roster long term, or maybe it's just a early season depth thing. But either way, has a chance to go get a ring. So good for him. Good for Andy Ibáñez, absolute gamer. I'm a big fan and always will be. I had one of the biggest hits in Tigers postseason baseball in the last 12 years, 13 years. So always going to be a fan. And Andy Ibáñez, man. Major league contract. And the Dodgers have such a long history of getting the most out of, players, and just so good at development and coaching and whatnot. So we'll see how he does. International free agency kicks off tomorrow. So you listen to this on Wednesday. International free agency kicks off Thursday, the 15th. The Tigers are connected to, depending on what site you look at, everybody has their own rankings, 4 or 5 top 50 international free agents, or top 100 international free agents. It doesn't look like they'll get anyone in the consensus top 10 this year. Like bona fide, all publications think is a top 10 guy. Like Chris Rodriguez last year was not only a consensus top 10 guy, but was a consensus top 5 guy. He's the best international free agent the Tigers have maybe ever signed, just in terms of like immediate talent and ranking and whatnot. But it's always a fun couple of days. Now, it's also important to remember a few things. One is a lot of these deals have been, how do I say this without getting anyone in trouble? a lot of these deals have been assumed for a while. I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not like teams' first contact with these players is, Thursday. There are some guys that have been in talks with major league teams literally since they were like 12 years old. Like, that's not an exaggeration. So, the groundwork has been laid for years in advance for some of these guys. And even the guys that will sign, they are still literally children. I'm like, legitimately, these guys are 15 to 17 years old. And most of these guys will never play Major League Baseball. And the ones that do are even like 5 years away would be the quickest. And some of them maybe even like a decade away, if they're on the younger side and maybe take longer to develop. But we've also seen plenty of fast risers over the years as well. And, the hope is obviously that Chris Rodriguez can be kind of that type of talent, like that transcendent, he is a top 5 prospect in the organization, kind of flies up through the system. And he's 18? He might be 19 now. I think he turns 19 this year. Either way, is very young and cost the Tigers a lot of money and will hopefully be kind of one of those guys. So we'll see. The Tigers, like I said, already connected to a handful of the prospects in the top 50 or 100. So we'll break those guys down more on Friday when it's, officially official. But just some things I want to throw out there. Now, also, there are some people that kind of roll their eyes at international free agency and they're like, oh, like these guys are so far away. Who even cares? You look at the landscape of Major League Baseball. It is not, all the best players got drafted. Nope. It's Juan Soto, international free agent. Vlad Guerrero Jr., international free agent. Fernando Tatis Jr., international free agent. Like, it is, a on par with the MLB draft in terms of producing high-end talent. Anybody from those, the Dominican, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, like that is a huge pipeline. It is the pipeline to get those type and those caliber of players. So we'll see. And like I said, we'll break that down a little bit more on Friday. MLB Network also just began its top 100 players countdown last year, just for reference. Tarik Skubal was, and they do it at the same time every year, so this would have been preseason 2025. Tarik Skubal was ranked 11th and was the highest rated pitcher in baseball. Riley Greene was 54th. Kerry Carpenter was 89th. I would imagine Kerry Carpenter falls off the list just because he didn't hit nearly as well this past year as he did the year before. Riley is going to be somewhere in the top 100. It's just a matter of where. The strikeout year, it wouldn't shock me if he fell a little bit. Skubal, I think, should be top 10. Now, again, he was the highest rated pitcher in baseball last year. But there were no pitchers inside the top 10. So I would imagine that him and Skeens are both probably in the top 10 this year. It's just a matter of which one they want to have higher. Other noteworthy names from last year, Mike Trout was 39th last year. I'd imagine that goes up a little bit, but he was coming off of just so many injuries. Still, had his fair share this past year too, but also hit pretty well when he was on the field this past season. So hopefully, I just want one more, dude. I am a generation. I am a kid from the generation of, Miggy and Mike Trout and Verlander and all them. I just want to see one more prime Trout season, man. I would do unthinkable things to just get one more 150 plus game, 10 WAR Mike Trout season. He was so special, man. Oh my goodness. That's like a guy you tell your kids and grandkids that you saw play live, which there are plenty. And I love hearing those stories that people have. But Mike Trout's definitely going to be one. Another noteworthy one, Emmanuel Clase was 57 last year. Can't imagine. That's going to open up at least, at minimum, there's going to be one spot available for somebody who was not ranked last year to be ranked this year. Arenado to the Diamondbacks. There was, once upon a time, a rumor that the Tigers were interested in Nolan Arenado. I am very glad that they did not do this. I am not a fan of Arenado in 2026. I was a huge fan of him, 8 years ago, even 5 years ago, but no longer, man. The power has been zapped. He has zero pop in that bat. He doesn't strike out a ton, I guess, but his offensive numbers last year were bad. They were legitimately bad. The back, I think, is gone. The defense has started to decline. Now, from the Diamondbacks perspective, like Jordan Lawler was striking out, nearly 50% of the time or something ridiculous. So they get a little bit of stability there, a veteran, a guy that maybe they can even move to first base at some point. Solid defense, again, not going to strike out, whatever. But and the biggest thing, they didn't give up anything for him. And on top of that, the Cardinals are eating $30 million. He has like $41 million left in the deal. The Cardinals are eating 30 of it. So you basically just paid $10 million and just got Nolan Arenado, essentially, if you're the Diamondbacks. And for that, might as well take a chance for that little of a risk. On the flip side of that, the New York Mets, there's a report, John Heyman tweeted it out, a few others did as well, that the Mets offer to Kyle Tucker is $50 million AAV, not total, that their deal to Tucker on the table is $50 million a year. Now, I think Kyle Tucker is one of the best players in baseball. I think he's one of the best pure hitters in the entire sport. Now we don't know how many years that is. That could be like a 3-year deal for $50 million a year. And they just we want him for his prime years, and then he can be a free agent again and go get the long-term deal from somewhere else. Maybe. Or like they do the Bregman thing with all the options. Who knows the ins and outs of what that deal could look like, but $50 million a year would be absolutely crazy. But the Mets have swung and missed a lot this offseason, and they kind of want to right that wrong. So we'll see what happens. Tigers, hate to break it to you, not going to be involved in that. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day, and we will, of course, be back on Friday. We'll talk offseason. I promise we'll get a Riley Greene breakdown in here at some point. We'll also talk international free agents, etc. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch y'all Friday, baby. Go Tigers.